La ilaha illallah. I don't need anybody, it's with me all the time. I don't need no one, it's with you and I. You created and gifted us with life. You sent us a message and a shining light. He is the one.
What advice do you have for the university student? We've heard stories, true stories, where the classroom will be full. The professor asks everybody, how many of you believe in God? And almost the whole class raised their hands, but towards the end of the semester, after the professor's done his dawah, and he writes on the board, in the beginning, there's no God here, and then he asks the same question. He says, how many of you believe in God now? And at the end, he's probably converted more than 80%. Only 2-3 people raised their hand. So now for people getting into that environment, for the student, the Muslim students, or just anyone in general, what advice do you have for them?
If you're a believer, hold on to that belief. Don't let the professor bully you. And keep in mind, really keep in mind that there are professors out there, there are PhDs out there are researchers out there in their fields and more who speak as eloquently or better in favor of intelligent design, in favor of a creator, having recognized that the arguments for chemical evolution, biological evolution, the presence of life to begin with, just simply are not satisfied by these rather simplistic, what I think are now just recognized as fallacious formulas, such as evolution, such as Darwin's concept of evolution.
When you look into it, it's really absurd. It's just way out there.
Yeah, and the thing is that I think that these scientists are sort of, once you catch them on an explanation that doesn't work, they throw out another explanation, assuming that most people are not going to research it deeply enough to realize that that next explanation they throw out is just BS. Okay, and that works for most people, because most people do not investigate. They just hear, oh, there's another explanation. Okay, I'll take that. Because quite frankly, most people are intellectually lazy. Okay, or they don't have time for it, or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that you have scientists who do devote themselves to this, and they have basically proven that these other theories are just childish. And that's why I'm saying that these people who are arguing evolution are basically doing so with the pretensions of science, not with real science, because real science is following the evidence where it points you. You see the evidence pointing in this direction, you go in that direction. You don't just say, no, I don't like that conclusion, therefore I'm going to make up another equally weak explanation for the theory that I do like. That's not science. So by the way, don't be fooled. You give this question to scientists, say, where did the life come from? Don't be fooled. They're going to say, well, maybe life was seeded onto this planet from outer space. They're not answering the question. They're just deferring it. Okay, so where did it come from? It came from outer space. And they got it from outer space, from another outer space. Oh, what are we talking about? One alien gave it to another alien, gave it to another alien, or one planet gave it to another planet, that does not answer the question. Where did it come from? In the end, trace it back. It had to come from somewhere, right? And that's the question that no scientist, no group of scientists have ever been able to answer. The other thing is, in this discussion, is when you're talking about evolution, again, go back before that. Stop thinking about biological evolution. Ask about chemical evolution. Chemical evolution? There's no acceptable explanation for it until now, and you cannot even get to biological evolution until you get over chemical evolution, and that has also never been explained.
These questions were just samples of what skeptics cannot explain. Now, we will continue our journey with Dr. Brown to shed more lights on how Islam can answer them and guide humanity to the right path, removing all doubts resulted from these simplistic theories.
I believe in a God who's the creator of the universe. We have the concept that he's one, eternal, absolute, that he does not beget, is not begotten, and there is none like unto him. We can recite the views of our religion. Can I explain where that God came from? I won't say more than what I've already said. But what I can say is this. Believing in an all-knowing, all-powerful God explains every other question you can ask me. Believing in that one thing can explain where all creation came from. And it can answer every question within creation, because God is all-powerful. Let's look at the things that atheists cannot answer. Where did everything come from? Big Bang and evolution. Where did the Big Bang come from? They don't know. The singularity arose without time, without space, without mass, without energy. How did that happen? Don't know. What were the formative elements that brought the singularity into existence? Don't know. What were the forces that made it draw into a hyperdense core? Can't say. What were the forces that, after drawing it into a hyperdense core, reversed, and instead of compacting it, made it explode and expand? Can't say. Where did all the mass and energy, where the first law of thermodynamics tells us, by the conservation of mass and energy, where did that come from, breaking your own rule of the first law of thermodynamics? Don't know. How did it, the one most cataclysmic explosion of all existence, how was that kept in check? In other words, how was that kept from just degenerating into total randomness, but instead developed into a universe of exquisite balance? Can't say. Who begins to look like more of a fool? The religious can explain everything. And in addition, we can explain the Big Bang, because in our scripture, our Creator himself speaks of a universe that is expanding. So we can actually answer, using scripture, we can actually answer the questions the scientists cannot. From that one belief, we can explain everything. From the atheists, basically one belief that there is no God, they can almost explain nothing. Like I said, who starts to look more foolish? If you are going to look at things from an intellectual point of view, the satisfaction of intellect is being able to explain things. And that is what, at this point, the scientific atheists are failing at doing. I mean, this is what they're failing at. So, people ask me many times, how I became religious. Most people assume that I came to belief through Christianity and then converted from Christianity to Islam. But actually that's not true at all. My parents were Quaker, so technically Protestant. But they raised my brother and myself both to think for ourselves, and they never indoctrinated us into the religion. So we basically followed the path of atheism. We were raised in a scientific household. My father was a very well-respected visual neurophysiologist, and he himself, although he called himself Quaker, he openly stated that he did not believe in God, and he espoused the typical atheist doctrine and beliefs. He used to tell us quite frankly that he just believed after death it was just blackness, nothing, that was the end. And that was okay with him. He used to explain our existence the way all atheists explain it, namely the Big Bang and evolution. And so that's what I was raised upon. And so throughout my schooling, up through college, medical school, and so on, you know, we were raised to believe that that was the only thing that made sense. And yet at the same time, I was raised with a scientific mind. The whole process of coming to faith for atheists is hard to understand. And I think there's a very good reason for that. And that is that I have never in my entire life ever met anybody who came to my religion, who came to Islam, except that at some point in their life they prayed for guidance. And this is part of the answer. And hopefully over time and with a series of these talks I will expand upon this, and this is just the beginning. I hope all of you have found something of worth in this talk, and will stay tuned for future talks.
Raise your hand and ask whatever you want from Him. He continues to give us and wants us to be those who are known as Jannah.